Hello, welcome to Pedal Platform. I'm Philippe, and today we're going to be talking about the TonePrint Editor. We're going to be on episode number 5, I believe, of the TonePrint Editor series. If you don't know where to find the other ones, you can go to YouTube here, look for Pedal Platform. While you're there, subscribe, hit the notification bell while you're there, and if you find these videos useful, just drop a like. Do it now. If you want to find the other videos in this series, you just click on playlists and you can find here on view full playlist for TC Electronics TonePrint Editor. But enough of that malarkey, let's go back to the TonePrint Editor, and today we're talking about modulation. And by modulation I mean the three main time-based modulation effects, i.e. the chorus, the flanger and the vibrato. This doesn't apply just to the Plethora. This will apply to the Corona Chorus, to the Shaker Vibrato, to the Vortex Flanger, you will see why in a second, and in a way to the Flashback delay and to the Hall of Fame reverb. On to the Corona Chorus. So, as usual, you have a bunch of tabs on the TonePrint Editor. If you don't know where to get the TonePrint Editor, check my first video on that playlist that I just showed you. The link is probably somewhere here on screen. In the editing bit, you will find first the router tab, and in this case of the Corona Chorus, not virus, you will find the router tab, the first one, then modulation, and then you'll find the two assignments for expression pedal and for the mash pedal. And here, the knob mapping. If you're using this on a mobile platform or a smaller screen, the knob mapping might also show up as a tab. Because I'm using a 1080p screen, the knob mapping shows up on the side, which I find awesome because it allows us to very quickly see where we are. On the first tab, you have literally two options. You can either kill your dry sound, and I will demonstrate that rather quickly. Have a guitar, have the Plethora. So I have volume. This is the sound with the dry sound and with the effect. If I kill my dry sound, I just get the effect, and you can hear the warble. Again with the whole sound and just the warble. Okay, so I'm going to leave kill dry off, so all of my signals are going to pass through, and now I'm going to show you what the effects level means. I get only dry sound if I kill the effects level. This might seem logical, sometimes it isn't. In this case, it is. So if I kill dry and bring down the effects level, I got nothing. I got only the microphone sound that's picking up the guitar. So back to effects level. I'm going to keep this like that for now. I'm going to keep it on kill dry so that we can more easily identify what's going on the modulation tab. So I'm going to swap to it now. And right on top you find mod type, and you can see a list of a bunch of algorithms, starting classic chorus, advanced chorus, classic flanger, advanced flanger, then two types of vibrato, and then TriChorus alternate algorithm, and through zero flanger. Depending on which algorithm is selected here, you will have some parameters that are available to you and some that aren't. I'm going to come out with a caveat right now, with a warning. Not all of these parameters are available in all algorithms, and not all of them will grey out as they should, for lack of a better word. For instance, on classic chorus, you can see that only depth number 1 is available, depth 2 and 3 are grayed out, delay time 1 is grayed out because it's not available, but delay time 2 and 3 are active, but they're not. They also should be grayed out. This is something that TC Electronic are aware of. They are working on this app, they're releasing updates every now and again, and at some point this is going to be fixed. For now, you kind of just have to get acquainted with what's going on in the app, what's going on in each algorithm, and work with it. So let's start with classic chorus. The modulation active switch at the top is one that is pretty self-explanatory. As you notice, all of this is now grayed out, which means that nothing is active. I just have dry sound. That's not why we're here. So let's activate the sound again, the effect, the modulation, and let's start going down. This tape flanger parameter, which is grayed out, only comes up when you activate the TZ flanger, which means through zero flanger. We'll leave that one to the end. So ignore that one for now. Then you have LFO type. LFO, in case you don't know, stands for low frequency oscillator, and it's an integral part of how chorusing and flanger sounds are created. Chorusing and flanging are created by taking your dry signal, duplicating it, delaying it slightly in relation to your dry sound, and then modulating the delay time, which means making it bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller. And this slight tweaking that you can do if you have a delay pedal, if you have an analog or probably best either an analog or a simulation of a good simulation of analog or tape pedal. If you tweak the delay knob very quickly back and forth, you will hear this difference in pitch, in warble. The LFO does that for you automatically. So it's a low frequency oscillator, which means that it's going to vary some value in a relatively slow way. And it can have a few shapes. It can be a sine wave shape, it can be a sine 2, sine 4, which are just variations of that, or it can be a triangle wave, or a sine of cosine, which mathematical functions. Let's not go there. Let's keep it simple for now. Let's keep it with a sine. Second caveat, not all LFOs are working for every algorithm, so if you change some LFOs and they're not responding to what you expect, ignore that. It's just because this list should have been grayed out but isn't. So let's keep this in classic chorus for now and carrying on with our parameters. This speed parameter is the speed of the LFO. So how fast is your LFO changing your delay signal back and forth? So it can go from really slow 61.5 millihertz, i.e. 0.06 of a hertz, 1 hertz being 1 cycle per second, so you can see that this is really slow. You can go all the way up to 20 hertz, which is really fast. I'm going to bump this up a bit to 10% and show you the difference in values. So let's start with a really slow LFO, and you can barely hear it moving. Now I'm going to make it really fast. Okay, now you can definitely hear it moving. Now on a more common speed. See, this is between really slow, between really fast. You have the whole gamut of options. The parameter next to it, depth, is how much is your delay time going to vary. So you have your LFO varying it slower or faster. Now the depth parameter is going to say how much it's going to vary by just a bit, i.e. a few percentage points, or vary it a lot. These two parameters are extremely interactive, and let me show you why. If you pull your depth to 100% with a really slow speed, you get this. You can barely hear the warble. Let's make it a bit faster. Now you can hear it. But if I start ramping it up, it's very noticeable. And now it's completely out of control. It's not that your depth has changed, it's just because you're moving it faster, the pitch variation is a lot more noticeable. Think of a car, the Doppler effect when a car is driving past you. If it's coming slow, you just hear the difference. If it's coming really fast, you'll hear. Okay, so that's Doppler effect for you. So the faster you go, the less depth you want in your signal, unless you really want to go for funny stuff like this. Pretty sure there's a use for this, not for me. So if you want to go really fast, you probably want to stay within really low percentage points for depth, and this is almost like a tremolo effect. If you want high depth, bring your speed down. And I'm going to show you how it sounds with added dry sound. See, not as noticeable, but still there. By the way, this kill dry thing, it's the difference between a vibrato effect and a chorus effect. Without dry sound you have vibrato, with dry sound you have chorus, or flanger, which is roughly the same. This is why with one Corona chorus pedal you can simulate chorus, vibrato, or flanger. So we've seen what these two do. Now let's follow through. I'm just going to find some middle of the road thing that we can use. Okay, this will do. And go straight to modulation HiCut. This is literally an EQ filter. You can literally decide where the HiCut for your sound will be. So if you don't want it to be very shimmery at the top, you can... So this is without the filter applied. It is 20 kilohertz. It's top of the range. But you can start bringing it down. So my top end is gone. I only have mid-range now. This can be more apparent again if we pull the full sound. Don't forget that my dry sound is now going through unaffected, so full frequency. And so is my chorus, and I can start bringing down the chorus. So now my modulation is only affecting the mid-low frequencies. Anyway, I'm going to turn this off again just for ease of explanation. Then you come into... I'm going to also make sure that this goes through. Obviously, if you cut it all the way down to 20 Hertz, no sound. Because literally you've just brought a low pass filter all the way down to the bottom of the range. Modulation mix is an interesting one because you can have 100% signal. Don't forget, I have no dry sound right now, no dry signal. The modulation mix is how much of the modulation you want affecting the signal that has been split to the modulation path. So in this situation, I've got 100% modulation. I'm going to make this more apparent. So I have 100% modulation, and now I can start bringing it down. And my processed signal has now roughly 50% unaffected sound and 50% modulated. This can be more interesting when you are using this page to tweak your delay tails. So this, imagine you're doing a modulated delay, but you don't want the full-blown modulation on each repeat. You can knock it down a bit on the modulation mix so that you still have some plain repeats and just a touch of modulation on top. Output level is output level. So the difference between this output level and this one, the effects level, I'm not sure, but I think... Not sure again, I'm not a TC engineer, so this I'm going from what I've experienced with the app. This is the send, so when you split your dry signal at the entrance to the effects processor, this controls how much goes to the send, and this controls how much comes back from the modulation into your signal path, I think. So these are the basic controls that will pretty much be on every algorithm that you choose. Then you have delay time 2 and 3. In this case, don't forget, if 1 is off, 2 and 3 don't work. So you can move them and they won't do anything. Let's now pick advanced chorus. And you can see that the delay time 1 has now become activated. So remember what I said in the beginning, that the chorus effect is doing by having your dry sound, splitting it and delaying it slightly. This is your base delay time. that can go from 0.1 milliseconds to 50 milliseconds. By convention, chorusing effects are usually done between 30 and 50, or 35 and 50, and flanging effects are done a lot with shorter delay times. For me, the best way of listening to this, and the effect sometimes is relatively subtle, so let's make this, let me see if this works. Because this delay time is essentially going to affect the overall frequency response of the signal because of the cancellation that occurs when your signal is modulating back and forth with the original, I'm going to bring in my dry sound. And let's try and get... Okay, now we have a sound. It's a chorusing sound, it's quite obvious, so let's see what happens. I have mapped, so that I'm not here twiddling the mouse, I have mapped it to one of the knobs. Ooh, no I haven't. This is depth. Where's my delay time? Okay. Sorry. I'm going to do this in real time then. I'm going to take knob mapping depth, and I'm going to change it here from modulation depth 1. I'm going to change it to modulation delay time 1. You have seen now that the curve is changed from 0.1 to 50 milliseconds, which is this, and if I tweak the knob on the Plethora X5, which you can't see because camera, you can see that goes up and down, which is a lot easier than clicking mouse and going up. This is a tip. If you are sweeping parameters to try and figure out what they do this. Assign them to any available knob that you have, tweak them, find the sweet spot, then unmap them and fix them to whatever parameter or whatever specific value you want. In this case, I'm going to start with my delay time at 0.1, and I'm going to try and sweep this parameter so you can hear what's doing. I'm going to stop talking for a second so I can turn off the microphone, and you're just going to have the guitar sound without the dry strings. So here we go. Okay, the effect is quite subtle, so let me find something with more frequencies in the signal. I'm going to put a bit of drive. Okay, with a drive sound is a lot easier because there's a lot more high frequency content, and that's where you hear the difference in the comb filtering that happens as you're moving your signal back and forth. It's not phasing, but it is. It's not the phaser effect, but it's phasing effect. And that's pretty much it for advanced chorus. That's what delay time does. So I'm going to jump the flangers for now, because the flangers are roughly the same thing with an added thing at the bottom. I'm going to jump them for now and come back then. And I'm going to go straight to TriChorus. And all of a sudden you have all of the 3 depth controls, and now the delay times 2 and 3 are also working. Because on a normal chorus effect you have your dry sound and the split to 1 extra signal. With a TriChorus you have your dry sound and then you split 1, 2 and 3. So now you can combine 3 depths and 3 different delay times to make a more lush effect. So I'm just going to shut up and throw some numbers at random here and try something. So as you can hear, that became bigger, a lot bigger. Let's see if this LFO type is available. No, not here. It seems to be the same sign. Anywho, this is what the TriChorus does. there's another algorithm for TriChorus, which is TriChorus Alternate, I suspect. To my ears, it sounds like there's a difference in the way that the delay lines are summed. I might be wrong, but it's what it sounds to me. So let's move on and go to the flanger. Classic flanger, everything turns off except for depth. These two should have turned off. They will at one point. And now you introduce modulation feedback and modulation feedback HiCut. That's another difference between flanging and chorusing, is flanging has a feedback line that comes from the end of the modulation thingy back to the beginning. So let's experiment with this. Yep, I've got my sounder. Relatively similar to a chorus sound, but if you increase the feedback, and the feedback can also go the other way, can come to negative feedback, i.e. invert phase of the feedback line and sum it in again. Obviously, with such big values, it becomes a bit funny, but in moderation, it's interesting. And this is where your famous jet flanger sounds come from. If you've got enough feedback, not that much. The other thing you can do here is you can again filter. Here you filter the whole modulated signal, here you just filter the feedback signal. So you could hear that it was losing control in the high frequencies. You can tame it here. Okay, that's the modulation feedback for the flanger, for the classic flanger. The advanced flanger adds the option of being able to control the delay time, but it's basically the same stuff as the other one. Oh no, not 20, you want 20k. Okay, there we go. And vibrato, it's the same thing as the chorus with a slightly different algorithm. Vibrato Ramp, this is something that will, that for now it's only specific to the vibrato pedal, the independent pedal, not the one in the Plethora, because the Plethora does not support ramp mode at this point, so I can't demonstrate it for you. But basically is the one where you click the foot switch and hold, and your sound starts wobbling after a few seconds, a few milliseconds, something. And finally, the last one that I want to show you today, the through zero flanger, which introduces another parameter, which in my version of TonePrint is called tape flanger, in some other places is called TZ flanger or TZSum. I can't really remember. So what happens with this one? You will have seen that now we have two depths to control. On the through zero flanger, again, your dry sound is split into two signals. And now they're going to be delayed one at a time. So one is going to delay and warble back, and then it's going to catch up, and this is going to delay and warble back. It's a difficult effect to recreate in an analog pedal. It's easy when you have two tape machines, you just slow one, slow the other one, slow one, slow the other one. And what happens is as one is slowing down and the other one is speeding up, they're going to cross a point, which is called the TZ point, the through zero point, in which both are going to cancel. I'm going to kill my dry sound again so I can try and show you what happens when both machines, imagine these are two machines working at the same speed at the same time. or in this case being modulated by the same amount. And let me see if I can do this. So first, I'll explain this parameter to you in a second. If both machines are working exactly at the same speed, you get this. If they now start drifting, let me drift this a bit more so it's more apparent. Let's pull this. You hear a different type of warbling, but you can still hear the two warbles. Okay, now let me put them back to 5, so both of them at the same time, and I'm going to bring the tape flanger control to 0. Yes, and the sound you're hearing is from my microphone. Again, I'm not a TC engineer. I don't have access to what's going on behind the scenes in this software, but from what I can hear, this control acts as a sum or a subtract, or in this case, a sum of the two waves in phase when it's above 513, or a sum of the two waves out of phase when it's below 512. And to show that, I'm going to put two slightly different modulation depths in the two waves. I'm going to start with summing them. Again, you can hear the warble slightly different between the two of them. And now I'm going to sum them out of phase, i.e. subtract them. And what you can hear is your bottom end's gone away, because that's what happens when you sum two signals that are almost in phase. And don't forget that there now is a slight difference in phase because of the difference in depth of the waves. So you get your signal coming in and out. And the closer the signals are, the less signal you get. If you have two completely different waves, let me put this one at 1% for instance, then you hear more. If this one is even larger, you have... Okay, I'm sorry, bumped the mic. If this one is larger, you have even more sound, because the subtraction now is subtracting two different, or rather, technically correct, you are summing two signals, one of them out of phase, but because the signals are now more different, what you're getting is a difference in signals that's also more different. It's not a great explanation, but let me throw in the dry sound again and reduce the depth on this one. And now you can very clearly hear that there's more going on than just a simple flanging effect that's going on in and out. You hear that there are places where your dry sound stays more dry, i.e. has less effect. And obviously, because it's a flanger now, you can bring some feedback into the loop. You might want to control it a bit on the high frequency. Or bring the feedback in as negative feedback. And this is basically everything that there is to know about this modulation page. You pretty much have to pick up a guitar or your instrument of choice, fire up your computer, plug in your mobile device, plug in your pedal, and just play around with this, and get a feel for what each of these parameters does. You already know from my other videos, you have watched them, right? How to assign expression pedals and mash, so I'm not going to go through it today. I'm just going to show you that this is the modulation page on a Corona Chorus. So if I change to the shaker, vibrato, and edit my custom preset, again, you have exactly the same options, but look that on the vibrato, the kill dry is active, but the modulation page is the same. It has this tiny difference for the ramp time. Remember that parameter that the Plethora X5 cannot use just yet, so I'm not going to attempt to use it because it's not going to work. And if I come to the Vortex Flanger, again, the router is the same and the modulation page is the same as the Corona Chorus. So you can do everything with these three pedals. Okay, you can't do the ramp with the Vortex or with the Corona, so ignore me. But everything else is the same. These parameters, if you play with them for a while, you will get a feel for what they are. And as a bonus, you will see that on the Flashback 2, the Modulation tab, again, it's the same. So if you know how to program or edit a Corona Chorus, you now know how to edit the Flashback. Another bonus, if you have a flashback pedal, a delay pedal, but you need a delay, you can do this. Bring down your delay, don't kill dry, keep your input level and effects level up. But if you do this, if you kill the delay, kill the feedback, now you have a chorus pedal. On the flashback, woohoo! And lastly, the Hall of Fame does the same. Hall of Fame, the page is exactly the same, the modulation, so you can modulate the tail of your delay. Obviously, this modulation feedback HiCut shouldn't be active in these parameters, but again, it's the evolution of the TC electronic TonePrint editor. Some things are going to be slightly out of whack. Honestly, I don't mind because of the amazing access that you get to everything that's inside these pedals, you know. So I'm gonna go back to my Corona. It's a really horrible name to use in 2020, but this pedal is a few years old, so let's just ignore that. And that's basically it for the modulation. As I said, you now know how to use the Corona Chorus, the Vortex Flanger, the... I never remember the vibrato name. What is it? The shaker vibrato. I'm sorry, TC. Flashback and Hall of Fame. I think the Sidenote also does the same. And that's it for episode number 5 of the TonePrint Editor. We will carry on with this series, probably going into the flashback algorithms next time, either flashback or the Hall of Fame, because I know that a lot of people want to know what those do, and they can be a bit more complex, especially when you go into the shimmer effects. But for now, that's all I have to show you. If you want to support the channel, please buy me a coffee on ko-fi.com/pedal platform. You can go in and check the page, because I try to post there and tell you what I'm doing or what's coming up at some point. Oh yeah, I did say this was part 3. Maybe it is. So you can follow me there on Ko-fi so that you know what I'm about to do or what I'm doing. And yeah, buy me a coffee. And that's all for now, and see you next time. Thank you and bye.